Sure.
Przemysław now, and so I would like to give him now the word, and definitely we have a couple of questions for all the participants in the coming Q&A session. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm glad to. I'm very glad that I have met. Maybe it was like 10 months ago. I met you, Przemysław, on a call, on a conference, and it's been a pleasure meeting you and hearing your thoughts about many subjects in Industry 4.0 and your experiences across globe and especially in Poland. And so I must say that I have learned a lot from this guy here next to me. Przemysław is an expert in the area of adaptation and transfer of modern technologies to industrial environments, manager, MBA mentor, and founder of a couple of startups. So he gained 10 years of experience in the industry by implementing projects in Europe, Asia, and America. And he's one of the pioneers and main popularizers of ADMA methodology in Poland that we have heard a lot today. And he's executive director of the Digital Innovation Hub, DICH for AI. So, Przemysław, please.
Thank you.
Take the word.
Okay, thank you, Damir, for the invitation. Thank you, everyone, because I didn't have a second just to tell you how grateful I am that you gave us the perspective, us meaning Croatians and all the parties on the other side of the border, on how do we perceive the industrial transformation in Poland. And as there was so many things said about the digital innovation hubs, then what I want to do is actually to give you our story. As we are one of the pilots or one of the effects of the pilot of the Digital Innovation Hub program in Poland. Our DICH is called DICH for AI. You can just Google it or type it in a web browser. So let's go. In the numbers, because I'm going to be referring to the numbers, what happens in our DICH, just to give you a perspective. The time of operation is like scheduled for 2 years, 19 to 21, so we are getting to an end. Throughout the time, we processed this much of SMEs in 2020, 21. As you see, it's the bigger number. I'll tell you in a minute why is it. We also generated over 400 marketing generated leads when we actually found out that it's good to have a proactive marketing. I will also discuss it later in the lessons. We did close relations with some sort of a success with over 350 beneficiaries. We're all separated, different and unique SMEs, and all of these were closed point to point. And two additional successes that I will also discuss is that utilizing our AI training cluster, because we are a digital innovation hub that was found to actually support the companies countrywide in the adoption of AI. And we created a huge computing center that we could actually rent it out to people for free. That's how many beneficiaries we found for this service throughout the 2 years. And the same applies to the robotics laboratory that was mentioned by Yashmina that we also have, and that has now been connected with the space for makers in the park to actually have more leverage than it had before. So it's probably not surprising to you that those two last points were the most expensive things that we ever purchased in our Digital Innovation Hub, and they were least effective. So that's why I think I have a mandate to actually tell you what are the lessons learned in the operation of the Digital Innovation Hub. So if you ever think of becoming one, you don't make the same mistakes that we did.
Thank you. That's why you're here. Definitely. Give me the juice.
All right. So the lesson 0 is that the financing will slip and the dates will not. And you got to be prepared for this. So which means that if your DICH will be established on January 1st, then probably the money will not be there in January 1st, but you're expected to work January 1st. So for us, it was quite easy. Why? Because we are a consortium of the commercial company and the university. So for university, it's actually a deadlock, because if you have no financing in this bin, you're not able to do anything. You're just waiting for the money. For the commercial part, which is the dominant of our consortium, it was actually easier because we have cash flows from other places, so we could actually start working. Having the money, but if you don't have money, you will just wait. So that's the first pillar of why our success in 2019 is like a fat 0. Nobody helped. That's it. That was lesson 0. Now let's go to the more meaningful lessons. Lesson number 1. As I told you, we used to be a normal digital innovation hub, and the normal digital innovation hub is spending budgets to support people. That's what they do. And everybody's having some sort of a schedule that they will execute throughout these days or months or years so that they can actually help people. Here, people means SMEs. Whenever I refer to people or clients or whoever, that actually means SMEs because this is the mission of the Digital Innovation Hub. And as we met the era of COVID, when we started operation, as any other normal DIG, we were actually struggling to spend budgets to support people. Why struggling? Because most of the products, I would say, we had in agenda, being conferences, being like the computing cluster, for which we needed a lot of time to actually configure and so on, everybody switched to those. And we all know that. There was a lot of conferences, there was a lot of meetings and so on, and people were actually fed up with this. And it was really tough to invite people to conferences. Physically because there were none, and online because there were so many, the multitude of those. And we kind of felt like we are giving an unwanted gift with the help we are providing, which I think is a feeling of anybody who is actually trying to do any of these things. So I can build demo infrastructure, I can organize conferences, I can organize training, online, offline, whatever. But if the market is filled with these tools, and I believe that the market today is filled with these tools because the people who sell infrastructure, they have infrastructure, and people who work from organizing or live from organizing conferences, they organize conferences, and people who live from training, they organize trainings. So why would Hub do this? Why? But we did, that was our plan. So if you think that building infrastructure is a support to anyone, then I can give you this example. We have a nice road built here. I don't think it's a support for neither of these guys, especially the guys in the bottom. If you think of conferences, that they are a support, then you've probably never seen something like this. I have seen this a lot of times. And I believe that both of these tools, they may only have a mandate of existence if you actually know who you're working with, or if the conference or infrastructure is being built or held because there is identified market need or niche for this particular action. Because otherwise you will just be competing with anybody who probably does it better. And remember that the Hub is for 2 years. So we cannot be excellent in everything. So that's how we started. And the lesson out of that is that our broadcasting, so any broadcasting activity like training, conference, whatever, that we want to invite everyone to, and then we are kind of, surprised that nobody's coming, it takes too much effort for the SME to participate because they have multitude of options. Why would they take yours? It's too much work. They are your client, and as a client in the market, they are used to the fact that it's us who should take the effort to actually make their interest or to grow their interest, even if they may not know their own interest, which is the case of Polish industry and not only, I guess. So what is the effort that we should take? What should we actually do as a hub to make people work with us? And there goes lesson number 2, which is we need to understand the word support. And if we follow Wikipedia or some other dictionary, supporting means giving assistance to someone or somebody, especially financially. And why I find this particular explanation funny is because if we speak of a support to the Polish market, industrial market, they will always start with finance. So if you generate your leads from some campaigns, or if you meet people in the conference and you tell them, hey, I'm from the Digital Innovation Hub, so we do blah, 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 how can we help you with? They will say, I need money, or I want money for something. And the typical answer from the Digital Innovation Hub would be, we don't provide finance. Like Anya said before from Future Industry Platform, they don't provide financing, that's it. Or you can tell them that we are not doing the financial advisory. That's another answer. But barely ever you would actually ask them, what is the money for? Because what I believe and what we have actually figured out by working point to point with the SMEs from Polish industry, that the money is a placeholder for any need they have. And the only word the other word could be innovation. So we want to innovate, and the second would be we need money, maybe for innovation, maybe for something else. That's a placeholder for the need, and it is your role, dear hub, to actually identify the need. By the way, people barely ever understand, the SMEs, that financing is something different to money, because getting finance doesn't mean that you will get money to buy some weird stuff. And the next thing is that financial assistance that you may provide to the company does not mean that you need to get them financing. These are very different things. So what is your role is that you need to find the need behind the need that was expressed by the customer. And we at Digital Innovation Hub for AI, we have nothing to do with financing. We have nothing to do with getting people financed and with financial advisory. But what we figured out is that it's quite often actually, and I'm really happy that this sort of information is also being provided during the courses for like Industry 4.0 leaders and so on, is that they may not understand their own business model. They may not understand the profitability of some endeavors they may take. And that's why they ask for money, because they want to finance something that makes no sense at all. And calculating profitability of an investment, that's not a rocket science. And everybody in our hub, whatever the role is, directors, people responsible for marketing, people responsible for technical things, everybody can do that. Why? Because it's easy, the first. And the second, it's quite interesting to actually see the people react for their needs, because they would tell you that, yeah, I need money to buy this and help me with this. And we tell them, okay, so can we help you by evaluating why would you actually need this particular thing? And he says, yeah, because you're doing Industry 4.0, so you do robots. Yes, we do, but let's calculate if it makes sense. And then we end up in the calculation where it says it doesn't make sense for you to buy this robot for this action. And he says, well, so what do I do to innovate? And then finally, you may end up in the situation that they want something that you initially wanted to sell them. Like, we have some generic trainings, I believe everybody has it. And if we don't, then the Future Industry platform, they have the e-learning, beautiful e-learning about what the Industry 4.0 actually is. And if you advertise it prior to this discussion, they would say, I don't need the generic training. But if you show them that they completely don't understand what is Industry 4.0 in the scope of their company, now they want it. Now they will register to the e-learning. To me, personally, I believe that e-learning is the most boring thing ever. And why? Because nobody showed me that I'm wrong somewhere and I could actually benefit from that. If you hear a learning, it's either your product, you're selling it, but you don't want to participate in that unless it brings your interest to it, because there is some value in that. And that's what we do with these short speeches, and now they want it. So whatever it is, the audit, because they may actually need an audit. Everybody talking ADMA here for obvious reasons. And we can also do that as a hub, but it's not a proposal. We're not calling people, hey, we're going to give an audit. But if you see that people don't know, that why not auditing them? That they could benefit from that, they could learn a lot about this. And I believe in some prior presentations, it was shown that you need to raise the knowledge, then you need to audit the guys, then you need to train them again to understand what they are doing, unless you, before you start implementing things. So yeah, lesson number 2 would be that first, you, dear hub, is a person, not an institution. If people feel being treated by the institution, you're not going to help them, because no institutions help people. It's people helping people. And you got to be personalized to that particular person. You may call it a one-stop shop. We are not a one-stop shop. We try to help people, something maybe out of our scope. But if there's a person, which is, I believe, the pinnacle of the one-stop shop, then the people will trust you enough to talk with you twice. And normally with institutions, you only speak once. The effort we want to make is to understand what their needs are. That's super important. And the third, even more important, is that's usually simple, because nothing I told you now is a rocket science. These are very simple things. You can learn it, not be taught. You can learn it in an hour by Googling. And that's it. That's what SMEs have no time for. They wouldn't learn it. So that's lesson number 2. And I use the word assistance, do effort in understanding the customer and being of assistance. So what does it mean? And what is this assistance? And assistant would be number 3. So if you want to assist someone, there is a beautiful word that's been used here a couple of times, marketing. And if you look at the definition of marketing, it is the activity, blah, 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 or exchange of offerings that have value for customers. Value for customers, something for someone. And then if we draw it up to our digital innovation hub, or not our, but any digital innovation hub, is that everybody claims to know what the SMEs are. How do they think? What do they have? What they don't have? Whatever group you take. SMEs in general is super generic. If you talk about the wood processing, that's also generic because there is plenty of different companies in wood processing. The food processing, another thing. They could be, even geographically, they could differ vastly. And everybody from all the hubs in Poland or future hub applicants in Poland or in other European countries, we claim we know our customers, which is not true. I don't think we know our customers for the past 2 years fair enough to say that I know the market. Because the particular SME you want to help or particular group of SMEs you want to help, this is a population or like a part of a population with very specific interests. And if you don't spend money, because it requires money and time or both, to learn about those guys, to know how to help them, you cannot say that you're actually helping them. Because any hub can say that they have a value and they have customers. That's most of the times it is true because they are helping someone, giving them something. But having value and having a customer doesn't mean that you have value for the customer. You have some sort of a value. There is a guy selling, I don't know, something on the corner of a street. Is it value for me that he's selling this? I'm a potential customer. He's got a potential value, but I'm out of the scope. And how many times have you actually, if you're a DIG, assumed many things about the SME without checking it and then offered a value? Multitude of times. If we look at the financing schemes, it's often the case. It's been mentioned that there were some financing programs in Poland that required people to get audited so that they actually have a plan how they will spend the money. And the tool was ADMA. This is super correct. But that was the first time. The first time ever it happened. So can we say that all the financing programs in the past, they were actually the right value for the customer? We cannot. Because people would, without knowing what they need, they would actually apply for something because there is a money for that. So that's very multi-layered thing, but I believe that what we can take from this particular lesson is that we need to know people we are helping. If you claim you help people, you have to know them. Simply, you need to know their needs. You cannot build a house that's going to be good for me and for Damir. Because he has other requirements, I have different. And they're way different from one another. That's the first. Second, you need to provide the right value for these people you know. And it may actually mean for you as a hub that you got the money for something else. Wait a minute, I got the money for adopting AI in Polish industry. I got funded for adopting robotics or promoting robotics or some other weird thing. And now I'm telling myself that I should actually do something else. And that's most of the times true. And that's a lesson 4, which starts with a statement that our or my initial value may have no value. That's what it is. And it also depends on how you treat these values. It would depend on how are your metrics shaped if you're innovation hub, because somebody who's giving you money, meaning the ministry or the EU or whatever other party that's actually managing the EU money, they require you to do something. And it has been quantified. And there is no changing metrics. Or maybe there is. Maybe it's worth to actually talk with people who fund you to find another ways that would benefit market more, just because you figured out that it's needed. Why aren't you willing to be agile in this particular place, but rather executing the strategy that has been created 2 years ago? Actually, it's not 2 years ago, because if you look when do you apply to be a hub, and when you actually become a hub, and when you get funding, and when you start operation, I think it's like a 3-year time frame, probably. So in the industrial world, everything can change. If you planned to buy the newest robot 3 years ago, now you have a rubbish. That's simple, and you won't change that. So your initial value may have actually no value for anyone. So what should you do? There is everything in the market. Everything. If you want a newest robot, you don't have to buy the newest robot. You go to a company that sells the newest robots and tell them, hey guys, I have 300 companies that would like to hear about the newest robots. Would they deny getting to 300 leads? Of course not. They would go anywhere. They would take the robots from Germany and come to Croatia to show you the robots. The only caveat here is that if you promise them that there is a market of 300 companies that are interested and you know the companies. So it's not like I made a call, hey, companies, who wants to see the robots? Everybody wants to see the robots. That's obvious. But if you do the market research, you spend money on the marketing, you talk with people, and you realize that, yes, there are 300 companies in Croatia dealing with food processing that would be interested and would benefit from introduction of some sort of the robotized solutions that some company in Germany sells, they would go for it. What is the problem here? The problem is that you have public financing and you're bringing the specific company from the market to show something to the customers. So that's a big problem. And we face this problem. A future industry platform faces this problem. Any entity that's funded faces this problem because there is a very thin line, and you need to think of it, where you shouldn't actually cross it while spending money from public purse to support the individual entities that are commercially benefiting from this. You shouldn't do that in general. On the other hand, it's the most beneficial thing you can do. So what do? Then you start thinking, then you maybe create a call for the companies that do certain things that they could present it in Croatia or whatever. There is multitude of options, but don't close yourself into the thing that you own. Because we as a Digital Innovation Hub are now on the mission to own nothing. Because everything is in the market. And if I want to be up to date with a market offering so that I can raise some interest in the companies, I have to have on the edge technology. I have to have new things. You don't want to go with old cars unless they're very old, but you want the new things. So that's the first thing. The second, those people I already told about it, they can share it and they're happy to share it. You as a hub, you aggregate that because you're the interface between the guys who have and the guys who don't know. So first you raise the knowledge and then you get them with a partner, with the right partner. And that's what the hub means. You can switch, you can route. That's the role of a hub. Sharing things that already exist. You have to be a hub, to summarize lesson 4. And adding value to your customers, it does not mean creating value. Because there is a saying that if you come up with an idea, there is already a company selling it commercially in China. I don't know if it's true, if it's not, but I believe that you don't need physically create things to add value. You are intermediate between people physically creating the value and people who don't know about this value or about the benefits from this particular value, but you don't need to own it. And hubs in general, all I know, which is not only Polish, they have the greed to possess. You want to be a hub that is mighty and you have a lot of resource that you can boast in the presentation. That's why my presentation is super empty with pictures, because we have nothing in our hub right now, or we're on the way to have nothing. But does it differ, or does it make any difference to the companies we work with? No, because to them, we are what we provide, even if we are not creating it. That's the value we do. We are a service. We are not a product. We are not a place. I don't care where people work in my hub. It doesn't matter. We have people working from abroad. And so what? We are a service. And service has to be reachable, has to be personal. That's it. If you have these criteria met, then it's a very good start to become a successful hub. And you may say, yeah, I got it. And we are ready to operate with all these lessons. And there goes lesson 5. Then I'll start with the phrase that nothing is forever. And so is your financing. And normally, and I'm speaking of ourselves because this is our case, normally you will get to an end of the project, and typically and it's probably the way how people manage projects in general in the industry, and not only, but usually you're the most proficient and excelling in the actions you wanted to do by the end of the project, and then the project ends. And so what? What then? If you're an institution, then probably you have a lot of bins of financing, so you could potentially finance people and so on. But if you're a commercial company with a small part of the university, for us, it means that the financing is over, so we are over. And it's not that we are surprised with this. It's not that we are willing to change that. You need to be aware of this as you're a hub or financing the project, that one day it's enough. So what option do you have? Your offering will get to mainstream. This is what you need to learn when you're a hub. If you're bringing innovation and helping people by any way I have mentioned here, and if it is worthwhile for people to use these offerings, then they will get to mainstream, such as audits do, like financial advisory, anything that is worthwhile for the companies. And what I believe is that our success is actually measured by the things that we have done and they got to the mainstream. That's the success of the hub. We may have cool numbers, we may have small numbers, doesn't matter. If somebody is actually seeing the value in what we do or what we did, they would potentially bring it to the market, and that's my success. Then obviously we could potentially, we will also have some partnerships that they will remain in the market and we can actually utilize them. But what I'm willing to say in the lesson number 5, it is very tricky for us at this moment of time, because we could be doing what we do commercially and make money of that and survive. The brand will remain, the partnership would remain, the products will be in the mainstream, we would be competing with a market that we have created, actually, but we could remain in the market in this particular way. And the question we asked ourselves as a hub, as an innovation hub or digital innovation hub, is that, is this what we want? And we learned in this lesson that it's probably not what we want. And we have planned our exit scenario, and our exit scenario is based on the first of these two. So instead of monetizing the IP that we have created throughout the whole time, like these advisory schemes and customer management schemes and so on, that may be adopted in other hubs, we decided that we don't want to remain in the market as a service company just doing the services that we have created, because then there will be no time for us to think of the new ways or things we can do. So that's why we think that we are the ugly duckling. We were the ugly duckling in the beginning of the hubs, and by the end of this program, we will also remain the ugly duckling, because what we are doing now is that we are actually trying to leverage the partnerships we have created, and we are investing into like the blockchain solutions, in the Green Deal solutions, and so on. We also want and support the future digital innovation hubs in the ways how they can actually manage the customers, so that the lessons learned we are speaking of now, this is also the knowledge we are willing to share with others. And having that, we are happy and willing to build further innovation instead of just becoming a service company as a digital innovation hub. And that's probably the story of us. Hope you learned something from this, and thanks for giving me a slot.
Przemysław, thank you very much for your insights. So, as you said, your slide don't have much pictures, but the know-how and the instructional way of thinking is quite condensed with information. So.